folks, this is Mr. MegaManFan, and if you like the content on this channel, please subscribe, leave a thumbs up, share the video, or click the notification bell. Any or all of those things really helps the channel out. Today we're reviewing the Retrobit Bluetooth wireless Sega Genesis 8-button arcade pad controller. This was recommended to me by my friend Sean, aka SS, as a nice alternative to the official Sega Genesis controller that was released by Nintendo for use with the expansion pack for Nintendo Switch Online. Now theirs was $50. This was $19.99 on sale from Castlevania Games, and that's not an endorsement. I just got it from them because it was available at the time for a cheap price, and again, my friend SS was the one who pointed out to me that it was available. Now, of course, the first place to start with a review is to get the product out of the box, so I've got this handy-dandy letter opener, which actually I prefer lately to using a pocket knife because it breaks through the seals quite easily and is very comparable to opening envelopes. I mean, it's a very thin piece of material that you're going through, whether it's the top of an envelope or the seal on the side of a box, one of those protective seals to let you know if the product's been opened before. And if you try to pick off the seals with your thumb, you either leave sticky residue on the box or you scratch up the box trying to get under the peel and get it going with your thumb. So I find this is just a better way to open boxes in general when it comes to controllers, especially if they have those seals on the side. Anyway, now that we've got the seals off of both sides of the box, it slides out with a nice illustration of the Genesis controller and the Bluetooth signal coming out of it. And then underneath we have an instruction manual and the controller in a tray, and presumably the cord will be underneath for charging it as well. Usually when I open these things up, I'm used to there being a receiver, but not in this case. Since it's Bluetooth, the computer or the device you're using it with is the receiver itself, as long as it has the Bluetooth functionality built in. Now, as you can see, it has instructions for connecting to various different things: Mac, PC, PS3, and of course Nintendo Switch, which again is why SS recommended this, and he even shared a list of controller configurations to use with Sega Genesis in the Nintendo expansion pack if you're using this controller. Perhaps he'll watch this video and comment below with a link to those instructions. I believe he found them on a website, or he wrote them up and submitted them to a website. I forget which, but I know he's got the source material on how to reconfigure and remap the buttons so that you can use this properly with Switch Online. But before we get to that, I want to test out the device, make sure it works. So I'm going to use my MacBook since it's already handy and has Bluetooth built in. And once I'm satisfied that it works, then I'll be ready to go through his configuration and set it up to try it with Switch Online too. But first things first, we got to get the charge cord out of the little bag here, get this controller charging, because it's obviously not going to do anything unless it's charged. So now we can see that the lights are blinking, showing that it is charging. You can use any USB plug, USB brick, and that will do the trick. And we'll let it get charged up a little bit while I'm trying it out. So we've got to get it to sync with the MacBook now. And it's not immediately obvious how you do that because there's no sync button on the controller anywhere. The instruction manual says to press Home and X at the same time, but at first that didn't seem to be doing anything. So I kept trying, and nothing. Maybe there just wasn't enough juice in it yet for it to do anything. Let's see. Let's look around here. Is there any button on the side? No. Can I feel a button in the back? No. Flip it over. Is there a switch? Nope, it was just X and home. It just wasn't recognizing it at first, but eventually 2 LED lights at the top started blinking in tandem, showing that it was looking for a device to pair with, and then it just showed up on my list of Bluetooth devices on my MacBook. And now you can see that I am controlling Sonic the Hedgehog wirelessly of sorts. Obviously, I've got a cord in it, so I'm not completely wireless, but if it was fully charged, I could take the cord out, and I would be playing Sonic the Hedgehog wirelessly on my MacBook. and it works a treat. The D-pad feels nice, the action buttons all feel nice, the start button is nice, and even the triggers at the top, which I don't need for playing Genesis games, they're nice too. Although, I suppose if you're using something like OpenEMU or RetroArch, you could configure a function like load or save states or reset the console for those extra buttons if you're playing Genesis. Or if you're doing Switch Online, you're going to need those extra buttons for the menus, so it all works out. It's got all the buttons you need for regular Genesis play, and then extra buttons for extra functionality with other things, so this is really a versatile controller. It mimics the 6-button Genesis arcade pad, but it can do much more than that. Now I can see why SS recommended this one. And just to make sure everything was hunky-dory, I wanted a game where I was moving up, down, left, and right on the screen, and not just back and forth and jumping in a platformer like Sonic the Hedgehog. So using Ms. Pac-Man was a really good way to test out the D-pad, make sure I could move in all of the cardinal directions and turn tight corners, and everything seems to be on board. I feel like Pac-Man games are my favorite way to test out a D-pad, because if you're not able to move around freely in a maze, then what good is it? It's got to be able to control in any direction you want, anytime you want, and respond as fast as you want. And I'm using the non-traditional Ms. Pac-Man mazes, the ones that are like freaked out weird mazes that you would never get in the arcade game, to really push myself with this and not just be in my comfort zone of playing the familiar boards that I already know so well. Another game that would be good to test this with is Streets of Rage, because you've got a lot of different combos that you want to do with your punches and kicks and throws when you're taking out multiple enemies on the screen at one time. So being able to fluidly control all the different actions in this belt action scroller is what you need a controller for. If you can't do all the moves, then it's not a good controller for you. And again, this retro bit does not disappoint. It functions with no discernible lag on my part. Playing it this way through OpenEMU over Bluetooth on my MacBook, I'm not noticing any problems whatsoever. So my assessment of this controller is it gets a hearty thumbs up, and I thank SS for recommending it, and I can't wait to try it out with Switch Online. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and I'm not trying to be excessive on the hyperbole here, but what you're looking at may be the most powerful combination in Sega Genesis history: the analog Mega SG and the Mega EverDrive Pro. But what, you may ask, makes this such a potent combination? The EverDrive doesn't do anything that a jailbroken analog Mega SG can do. They can both run games off the SD card slot, right? True, but what the EverDrive Pro from Krikzz can do that analog don't is Sega CD games. With this card inserted into a Mega EverDrive Pro, you can play any Sega CD game. Now, some people might tell me 256 gigabytes on a micro SD is overkill, but I would rather have too much storage than not enough. And Sega CD games are not small, so I erred on the side of abundance, and if I don't need that much, I can switch it to a smaller micro SD card later on. Before we go any further though, let's talk about the specs for this Krikzz developed device. It has a Cyclone 4 FPGA, which is very powerful, 16 megabytes of PS RAM and 1 megabyte of SRAM. It supports Genesis 32X, Mega CD, Master System, and NES. It has a RAM cart for Mega CD, BIOS swap functions for different regions of Mega CD games. It has a Mega Key to unlock different region lock games. It has a YM2413 core to support Sega Master System. The Pure Solar mapper is supported. There is an in-game menu from the cartridge, save states, and EEPROM to support those save states. It's packing a lot of different features. It doesn't work right out of the box though. You need to format the micro SD card, you need to unzip the latest operating system from Krikzz.com, and put the folder labeled Mega on the root of your micro SD card. That's where the operating system should be. Also, you see that folder labeled BIOS? You're going to need the operating system of the Sega CD for each region that you want to use: Japan, Europe, and the United States. I can't tell you where to get those operating systems, but I can tell you they're widely available on the internet. Use a search engine like DuckDuckGo instead of Google, and they won't be too hard to find. When you rip your Sega CD games with whatever computer you choose, you should have a bin file and a Q file in one folder. Put both of those in the folder and select the folder from the main menu when you turn on your Sega Genesis or your Analog Mega SG and run the cartridge. In some cases, it may make you select the CD-ROM to boot it up, as it did with Popful Mail here, but it will work. Just remember that you will need one folder on your SD card for each Sega CD or Mega CD game. Don't dump them all in one folder, it won't work, and don't mix and match them with your Mega Drive or Sega Genesis ROM backups. That won't be any better. You need one folder for each CD-based game. I hope that makes sense. Just rip the CDs any way you can, use whatever Sega CD backups you have, put each one in one folder, and then select it from the Mega EverDrive Pro's menu when you turn the system on. Whatever region CD you use, it should detect it automatically and select the correct BIOS if you've loaded them all into the BIOS folder of the Mega folder on your SD card. Just use the same file names that Krikzz specified in the instruction manual, which you can download from his website or from whatever source you bought your Mega EverDrive Pro from. This case, I bought it from Stone Age Gamer. I like the construction of the shells they use with their EverDrive products. I like their customer support, and they usually offer digital games with your purchase. In this case, 27 of them came with the Mega EverDrive Pro, so in my mind that's better than getting a bare board that you have to assemble in a shell yourself, or getting no customer support or no digital games with your purchase. Stone Age Gamer is good value, but it's hashtag not sponsored time. I gotta say, I don't get anything from Stone Age Gamer for mentioning them in videos like this. They're just my preferred source for buying EverDrive products. The handy thing about using this with the Analog Mega SG as opposed to a regular Genesis is I can use the menu button on my 8BitDo controller to go back to the settings of the Analog Mega SG, and I can just select Run Cartridge and go right back to the EverDrive menu and select another Sega CD game very quickly. I don't have to get up and cycle the power on and off on a regular Genesis Model 1, 2, or 3, but this will work with all of those. Just don't have the Sega CD attachment on your Genesis, or this thing will get really confused with two different BIOS running at the same time, and it will be pandemonium, mass hysteria, cats and dogs living together, and all of that good stuff. In the time since we started this video, I've shown you a Japanese CD with Popful Mail and a US CD with Space Ace, so to complete the trilogy, here's a PAL Mega CD for Earthworm Jim, the Enhanced Edition. As I said before, as long as you have all the BIOS, it will auto-detect the correct one for the version of CD that you are running and get everything going for you. You can use any BIOS you want too, there's no restrictions on that. If you've got multiple different versions of BIOS, because you can find folders with different iterations like version 1, version 2, version 2.1, version 3.0, and so on. Just select the version of the operating system that you like, that you know offers the best compatibility with your Mega CD games. If there's one that doesn't work with a Mega CD game that you have, try a different operating system. Just rename it to the file name that Krikzz specified, and it will pick that version operating system. You can swap them in or out on your SD card at any time. Just use the file name he specified for whatever one you choose. Now, I should bring up cost at this point, because the Mega EverDrive Pro is going to cost you a couple of $100s. You can obviously do it PayPal in 4 payments if you want, or you can finance it in any way you choose with whatever cards you have, but you're going to have to shell out 2 bones to get this thing. And that's going to raise the question, is it worth it? Well, guess what? The North American version of Popful Mail for Sega CD goes for $300 loose and over $500 complete. 2 bones versus 3 or 5 bones? That doesn't sound so bad to me. The game you're looking at right now, Lunar the Silver Star, goes for $140 loose and $240 complete. So once again, The value proposition of playing Sega CD backups is very much in favor of spending $200 on the Mega EverDrive Pro. Now, there is a competitor product, the Mega SD from Terra Onion. It offers a slightly more powerful FPGA, some enhanced features for audio support on Sega Genesis games, and lets you do some tricks with your Genesis or your analog that this can't do. But both the Mega SD and the Mega EverDrive Pro do the one thing that people want from both of them: allow you to run Sega CD games from an EverDrive cartridge. An unthinkable proposition back in the 1990s. The entirety of a Sega CD in a cartridge in your Genesis. How freaking unreal is that? The Mega EverDrive Pro has a few tricks up its sleeve all its own too. You can run any Sega Genesis or Mega Drive game. You can make save states of those games. You can load those save states, and you can go to the menu of the EverDrive while you're in the middle of a game to either reset the game, resume the game, or go back to the main menu. It's pretty sweet. And there is an unexplored feature that I did not cover in this video because it has some limitations and it doesn't work all of the time, but you can run an NES emulator on the Mega EverDrive Pro. Now, I say that with lots of asterisks that you should read the fine print here. It's an experimental feature. Not all games are compatible. Some will have glitched graphics. Some will have incompatible sound. The colors will not look the same as they would on an NES system. And your best bet for games that would work properly on the Mega EverDrive Pro are very simple NES games. Mid-80s, not bank switched heavily games. If you have a custom mapper with multiple banks of memory and enhancement chips, that game is probably not going to work too well on a Sega Genesis through the Mega EverDrive Pro. But if we're talking things like Wrecking Crew or Mario Brothers or Super Mario Brothers, that kind of game, first-party Nintendo games, really simple, not enhanced games, they will work for the most part. This was kind of unusual for me because I actually saw this project on Macho Nacho's channel. Be sure to check out Tito. He's got some great content over there. But he bought the version of this that did not come fully assembled and did not come with an LED light to indicate the level of charge. What I bought from Greg at Laser Bear was a fully assembled kit with an LED light on the side to give you a readout when you push the little button. But this does not come with the rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. You have to buy those separately. So whether you get the unassembled kit or the fully assembled kit, you're still going to need batteries. And they recommend that you get the batteries from Nightcore because they are made specifically for this product for the durability of the battery life. It will give you many, many hours on a full charge. And if you use a knockoff cheaper version from Walmart or China or who knows where, you're not going to get the same results. I can testify personally that Nightcore has been very reliable in my usage of this product, but it's not inexpensive. 2 batteries to fit inside this battery pack are going to cost you $42 before shipping, and this fully assembled battery pack is going to cost you $60 before shipping. But since I could do local pickup, it cost me a little less, so I saved some money, and they were having a Christmas sale at the time, so I got like 10% off on it as well. I had no idea that Laser Bear was local to me until I decided to do this project, so that was a pleasant surprise. Here are the 3500 milliamp batteries that are $21 each. Again, you're probably questioning the wisdom of this as you're watching right now, and I would understand. But if you consider the cost of putting 6 AA batteries into a battery pack and having to change those repeatedly, using rechargeable batteries is going to save you money over the long run. And some people who have a Sega Nomad don't even have the battery pack at all, so they need a product like this to be able to use it in the first place. Otherwise, your Sega Nomad is tethered to the wall at all times. Now I'm going to tell you about something that confused me at first, but Greg was happy to clarify, so I'll do the same for all of you. When it's charging, you won't get an actual readout. It will just show you all of the LED lights are on. To get the actual level of battery charge, you have to unplug your Genesis power adapter and then push the button on the side to read the lights. Use this model power supply, by the way. You'll know it's the right one if it's got the yellow tipped jack on the end, or a replacement Model 2 power supply that is made to the same specs as the Genesis Model 2 power supply. You'll know it's got the right tip if you plug it into the Nomad and it fits, and you plug it into the Nomad battery pack and it fits. Incidentally, you can play the Nomad while the battery pack is charging. Greg told me that is not a problem, but it just will take longer to charge. So that's something to know if you're using this. There is one other thing I would like to note as you see this footage of me playing my Nomad with the Mega EverDrive Pro cartridge in it. Sega CD audio does not output through the Nomad unless you get a mod done. So look up the console5.com parts kit for the Nomad mod. There's some capacitors and resistors you'll need if you want to do that. And if you're not experienced with that, hire an expert. But if you're playing normal Sega Genesis games, you will hear the audio just fine, as you hear right here from me playing Toe Jam and Earl. So, this product is admittedly not for everyone. $60 for a rechargeable battery pack, $40 for batteries, shipping, and all of that. I realize you're making a substantial investment, but if you want to truly play your Sega Nomad portably and not be using 6 AA batteries all the time or being tethered to the wall through a Genesis Model 2 power supply at all times, this gives you the kind of portability and the long-lasting battery life durability that you would like.
Genesis.